So then every great band has to start somewhere, and for the Electric Light Orchestra, it started with this album here. So hello and yes, welcome back to another album review. Now then today I wanted to come back and do an album which I'm not as keen on, because recently on my album reviews I've been doing albums which I generally love. I've done a couple new releases from Mudcrutch and Eric Clapton. I've done Peter Gabriel's first album. So there's been a few, the albums I've been doing lately I really have actually enjoyed. They're albums I really like. And I have yet to do an album by my second favourite band, the Electric Light Orchestra, a review of one of their albums here on this channel since I've updated my album reviews. So I thought, what better place to go than with their first album? And as I'm also not a huge fan of their first album, so I thought that kind of will help to show that I will be reviewing some albums that I don't like as much as well. So we're going to be coming in with ELO's first album, which is self-titled, or of course in America it is actually called No Answer, and possibly in some other countries around the world, but I'm not too sure about that. So yeah, basically what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a bit of information on the album. We're going to go over each track individually and mark them out of 10. I'm going to show you my copy of the vinyl record. We're going to add up all the marks I give it out of 10, divide it by the total number of scores given. That will give us an overall mark for the album. And then also, just to top it off, we're going to take that marking over to my album ranking board list and see where it ranks compared to other albums I've reviewed on my channel. So then, starting off, this was the Electric Light Orchestra's first album. It consisted of three main members: Jeff Lynne, of course, who was from ELO from start to end; Roy Wood, who's most famous for a Wizard, who was only with ELO for this album and half of the next album, which is geniusly self-titled ELO 2. And then, of course, Bev Bevan, who was also Jeff Lynne's wingman, really. So this album here was released on December 1971. UK it hit number 32 in the charts, and in the US it hit number 54. So basically this is their first album. So how this band got together was Jeff Lynne was basically in the Idol race. He made a few albums with the Idol race. He'd known Roy Wood for a good 4 years prior to them coming up with this idea of making a band called ELO. They both talked about basically forming this band called the Electric Light Orchestra, which would have a very even balance of what you'd expect to get in a rock album, and then a lot of strings. And of course, Roy Wood at the time was doing the cello, so you get a lot of cellos and violins and oboes and really cool instruments like that you wouldn't generally pair up with a rock-sounding album. So it was a very unique concept, I must say. So anyway, Jeff had decided, he was going to leave the Idol race, which he really didn't like doing, because he really got on with the members of the Idol race. And then he was going to go on, do a few albums with The Move, and then go on to make this band here, the Electric Light Orchestra. And of course, Roy was in on it, Bev Bevan tagged along, and that was your three main core lineup. And then, of course, as I say, they released the album in December of 1971. Couldn't get an exact date, because you guys know me, I do normally like to get the exact date, but it could not be found online. And yeah, this album consisted of 9 tracks, so I'll be giving it 9 scores. But then, of course, I do like to rank the album artwork as well at the end of the video. So I'll be giving this album 10 scores, and then adding all 10 of them up and dividing it by 10. So anyway, let's start off with the opening track, 10,538 Overture, which is by far the best song on this album. It is one of the best openers ever. And I could imagine myself back in 1971 buying this album and thinking, putting the first track off and thinking, this is going to be one hell of a debut album, because the opening song is incredible. It's a Jeff Lynne song, amazing opener with great guitar work, with the cello, coming in the background, supporting the guitar work, giving it a bit more bass. The lyrics are average, they're just pretty simple. But the vocals from Jeff on this song are generally incredible. I love the breaks in between the song where the guitars kind of get their own little solo. Ending sounds very day in the life-ish. Jeff Lynne and Roy Wood both being very heavily influenced by the Beatles. They're always coming along for these Beatles tribute things. I just done in one of my music night videos, I talked about the All This in World War II Beatles covers album, and Jeff Lynne and Roy Wood both appear on there doing a couple songs. So yeah, this song really reminds me of A Day in the Life at the end, you know, kind of the ending to this song and then the ending to A Day in the Life. Fantastic song to open the album. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Absolutely love this track. It's great. And as I say, you think this album is going brilliantly. You're like, this is going to be one of the best debut albums ever. Well, this is when the album starts to go downhill and it never really picks back up, unfortunately. We get a Roy Wood track called Look At Me Now, which isn't a bad track, actually. I don't mind this one. It's very string heavy. There's not much coming on. Jeff didn't have much input on this because Jeff was more known on this album for doing the guitar work and the piano and more of what you'd expect Jeff to be doing. But this album here really heavily focuses on the cello, a lot of violins, a lot more strings like that. And of course Roy Wood is singing it, so very Roy Wood heavy song. The vocals are good from him. You know, I don't mind Roy Wood's vocals. I'm obviously more of a Jeff fan, but his vocals are pretty good on it. The lyrics are okay again. There's not really any spark of great lyrics on this album, to be honest. But the instrumentation on here just feels a bit unfinished, unpolished. It's like it sounds good. I like it, but it sounds a bit like a demo. It's like it needed a bit... I think Jeff needed to have a bit more input on this to make the song sound more polished. If the song sounded more polished, I actually quite like the idea of this song. I think it could have got a 7, maybe even an 8 if they polished it really well. However, I am going to give this track a 6 out of 10. It's a good song, but just not great. And then we get Nelly Takes Her Bow, which is another Jeff song again. Really slow intro, like this bass sound like boo, and also the piano just kicks in, and Jeff over the top singing. So yeah, it's a bit of a slower song, this one, but I feel the problem with this song is it works well, it's a good concept, it's a nice slow album to break up the previous 2 tracks. The thing which I feel about this one is Roy Wood's cello has a very, very loud, heavy impact in the back of this song. And I feel it's really too dominant. I feel it kind of spoils the mood of the song a bit. I think it needed to be toned down a little bit, just turned down. It's a bit overkill, I guess is the word I'd use on this one. It gets a bit weird at the end. All the instruments kind of come in for this kind of mishmash, and it really doesn't sound like there's any organisation to it whatsoever. It generally sounds like a mess. But, you know, the song itself is okay. And that's just all I'd say for this song. It's an okay song. So that means it's pretty average. So I am going to go in with a 5 out of 10 on this track. And then we get the Battle of Marston Moor, sorry. And this is a Roy Wood track. And this is by far the strangest song on the album. I love the concept. I really do. I think it's a really fun concept. It's basically Roy Wood just... There's no singing. Roy Wood talks at the start of it. And I can't remember what he says off the top of my head. Off the top of my head. Top of my hand? What am I on about? But basically, it's about, you know, the Battle of Marston Moor. You know, there's a big battle about to take place. And it's kind of like, he's this general. And, yeah, he's kind of like he's speaking. He's giving a speech, preparing his men to go into battle. And then that's it. It then just turns into an instrumental song where nothing really happens. It's like a soundtrack for a film, but it doesn't really work very well because it would get pretty boring because it's just repeat, repeat, repeat. So I listen to a lot of soundtracks for films and they kind of develop, they change, they have bits where the bass will drop and then it'll pick back up. But this song here really doesn't do anything like that. It's a lot of random instruments, a bit of a noise. And I generally just don't like this song very much. So I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 10. It's very disappointing because I would have normally thought that song would be right up my street and I'd really enjoy it. But unfortunately not very good there. And then we move on to side 2 of the record where we open with another Roy Wood track, which is an instrumental. And it's a fun, upbeat instrumental and it really sounds good. Throughout each verse it kind of builds on more instruments and it builds up and builds up and builds up. However, it keeps the same tune throughout each verse. It's just like it adds on another layer, but it's just repeating, repeating, repeating. Unfortunately in an instrumental, because I do like a lot of instrumentals, you know, being a big Clapton fan and whatnot. But the thing that I like about instrumentals is that they have time for the artist to develop their skill and show off their skill on an instrument. So you'd get a lot of cool guitar solos, maybe some piano solos, whatever. This song just repeats, repeats, repeats. It really doesn't do anything. as I say, it just builds on more instruments as it goes on. And it's all well and good doing that, but it's nice to show off some, real skill on these instruments. And I'm not saying that Jeff or Roy aren't skilled. They are very skilled. They're very talented musicians, of course. They're brilliant. But, I felt that, that's what an instrumental needs to have. Unfortunately, this song doesn't do that. I don't hate this song because it is a fun beat. It's quite funny at times. I'm going to give this track a 4 out of 10. Then we get the track Mr. Radio, which is a Jeff song, and this one kind of sounds like something he would have done in the Idol Race or The Move. And it starts off as a sound from a radio, like it's trying to find a radio station, being tuned and stuff. Kind of a bit similar to Telephone Line, I guess. You can kind of relate the two, except one's a telephone line, one's a radio. But yeah, it's actually quite a good song. Jeff comes in with the piano, singing here. Maybe not the best vocal performance from Jeff, I can't lie, but the lyrics are kind of fun, Hello, Mr. Radio, will you play my request today? Kind of like he's singing about, he's singing to the radio almost. And then he's saying why his song should be played, basically. So I'd say this is one of the better lyric songs, and it's unfortunate because it's probably Jeff's weakest vocal performance on the album. So it's like, best lyrics, but kind of weakest vocals from Jeff. So it's like, couldn't have lined them two up. But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good song. The cello, again, a bit overkill here. It's kind of like Jeff does these more classic rock songs on here. They're very mainstream, I guess, for the time. And Roy Wood's kind of like, what do I do? Cello, vroom, 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 vroom. And, it kind of just spoils the mood a little bit on... it worked well on 10,538 Overture, but I don't know, it's kind of like, I just feel like the cello just comes out and kind of just messes them up a bit. The Jeff songs, like on Nelly Takes Her Bow, and now on this one, Mr. Radio. But Mr. Radio is quite good. I like the piano solo in it. I'm going to give this track 6 out of 10. I'd say it is above average. This is a good track. And then we get Manhattan Rumble, which is another Jeff song and an instrumental. That's good to see Jeff doing an instrumental as well. And, yeah, very creepy sounding. I don't know what to think of this song, really. Sounds like something out of a horror film trailer or something. But, yeah, the piano is very slow and it kind of has this echo effect. The drum beat in the background is very simple. It's just do, 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 do. But it kind of builds this bass tension with the piano. And it builds a lot of attention, really. And it's the song stands out, definitely. Because all of these tracks have this very weird kind of violin, cello feel. And then some kind of classic songs from the 70s, like Mr. Radio and 10,538 Overture. But this song's very creepy. Yeah, I'm going to give this track a 4. It's not awful. It's... but not very good, I guess. I wouldn't go back to listen. It's very unique, but rating this on a scale of 1 to 10 out of how much I enjoy it, I don't really enjoy it that much. It's a blooming weird song. And then we get Queen of the Hour, another Jeff song, very heavy on the violin and the cello again here, unfortunately. Especially at the start of it. But it calms down, going down... for Jeff to come in with a really good vocal performance, actually. Probably Jeff's best vocal performance on the album. And yeah, lyrics are okay. It's an okay song. I'll give this one a 6. I'll say it's just above average. Then we get Whisper in the Night, which closes the album, which is a Roy one. And it's actually a normal song for Roy. He's not trying to do anything too stupid. He's trying to do, I think, kind of similar to Queen of the Hours, actually. Just a nice slow ballad, kind of Jeff song. And yeah, it's good. Roy's vocals are... probably his best vocal performance on the album, but I'd still rather listen to Jeff singing it, of course. The only thing about this song is it's very simple, very easy song, very innocent. But it goes on for, 5 minutes, and it generally just doesn't change. So for that reason, the song is going to get a 5 out of 10. Average song there. Okay, so then, we're going to rate the album artwork now. And to do that, I'm going to have to show you my copy of the vinyl record. So here it is, the cover... I've seen a few album covers where they just stick a light bulb on the cover. It's been done before this. It'll be done after this. Yeah, it's interesting, I guess. You can actually see the camera in the reflection of the light bulb on here, which is not great. But, oh well, 1970s, they didn't exactly have the technology we have today. So I can't really I'm not going to let that influence my score. But I thought I'd point it out anyway. I like the cover, it's pretty good. And you've got the three main members there on the back. You've got Jeff, Roy, and Bev. Of course, Roy there sitting with his cello. Gatefold's pretty random and interesting. Each picture kind of resembles each song, so that's 10,538 Overture apparently. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff on here. And I know I didn't talk about all the instruments used on this album because Roy Wood bloody plays so many weird, wacky ones. So if you want to sit there and read through that to get all the instruments that are on this album, have fun. And of course in the sleeve we got Harvest labelled there. This is original first pressing UK British copy, which is really nice. Album artwork on this one, I'm going to give it a 7. It's pretty good. I don't have much against the album artwork, but it doesn't excite me too much, so 7. It's pretty good, I think. A little bit generous maybe, but well, that's it. That is my review of the Electric Light Orchestra's The Electric Light Orchestra. Self-titled album, of course. EMI Harvest, yeah, in the corner as well. So 7 out of 10 for the album artwork. So now what I've done is I've added up all the scores I've given for each of the 9 tracks, and then the album artworks, that's 10 scores given overall. Added them all up, divided them by 10, and the Electric Light Orchestra is going to get a 5.5 out of 10. Now, then I say anything above a 5 is good. Anything under a 5 is bad. So the fact that it's got over a 5 shows that it was a good start to ELO's career. And I did review ELO 2 before I rebooted my album reviews. Sorry, lost for words there. So I did review ELO 2, their second album, before I updated the reviewing system here on this channel. And that one got 6 out of 10. And I would generally stick by that. So you can see that they've slowly gone up. And they just get better and better until they get to... I think El Dorado is when they really hit their peak and their music got really good. Face the Music through to Discovery were phenomenal albums. Time and Secret Messages were pretty good. Balance of Power was the one where they kind of lost it a bit again, I think. But that was their last album, so it's kind of like... maybe it was a good time to pack up then. But anyway, this album here is a solid album. It's pretty good. As I say, it's just above average, I'd say. So a good debut. Not great debut, but a good debut. And a good start to a fantastic career for ELO and Jeff Lynne. But now what we've got to do is we've got to head over to the album ranking board where I can place my little slip here for ELO. And we can see where they rank. Okay, so here we are back over to the album ranking board. Here's the slip. I am going to call the video the Electric Light Orchestra album review because that's what it's actually called here in the UK. That's what it was meant to be called. But for the sake of identifying this slip, I have called it No Answer, as you guys can see there. So 5.5. It's going to go just here in between the 5 and 6. I'm going to put it just over here. There we go. Sorry, postman just been. I'm out of breath now because I've been running up and down the stairs. But anyway, it has managed to beat out The Who, Face Dances, and John Lennon and Yoko Ono Sometime in New York City. But Phil Collins' Face Value just beat it with a 5.7. George Harrison 33 and a third with 3.6. McCartney on 7.0. Lindsey Buckingham on 7.1. Pete Gabriel Carr on 7.4. Mudcrutch 2 on a 7.5. Eric Clapton I Still Do on an 8.3. Mudcrutch on an 8.5, Eric Clapton Back Home on a 9.2, and Derek and the Dominoes on a 9.4. So not too bad, really. So anyway, that is it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was really fun to finally get an ELO album up on the ranking board. Next album review up, I'm not sure what it'll be. I might go back to Paul McCartney because I said I'd do Ram. So maybe I'll head back to that one and get Ram done. But anyway, I had a lot of fun reviewing this album. It's a good album, as I say. If you haven't heard it, I do recommend it. It's a lot of fun. At least check out the opening track, 10,538 Overture. That is a great song. So anyway, that is it for this video. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. So please hit the subscribe button, leave a message, and like the video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Hello, Mr.